Made it through. Maybe. Fucking A, we did.
Hold them back while I open the gate.
There's the first crash.
She made light work of that. Hold them back while I open the gate. She made light work of that. Hold them back while I open the...
I'll figure out. I figure out how to fucking get this fired. Tax.
Continue the assault! Slay them all! gate!
Noxious second.
Shaman Ra? How is this possible?
Wrath of a king! I shall dethrone you, Sekama, and leave you to the sand! Wrath of a king! I shall dethrone you, Sekama, and leave you to the sand! I shall dethrone you, Sekama, and leave you to the sand! You are unworthy! The Madaketh will fall by my hand! The Madaketh will fall by my hand! I shall dethrone you, Sekama, and leave you to the sands!
Hold them back while I open the gate!
Noxious Sekama!
He?
Wrath
Shaman
of
Ra?
the king!
How is this possible?
Death and decay!
Wrath of a king! I shall dethrone you, Sekama, and leave you to the sands! The Madaketh will fall by my hand! I shall dethrone you, Sekama, and leave you to the sand! Wrath of a king! The Madaketh will fall by my hand! I shall dethrone you, Sekama, and leave you to the sand! The Madaketh will fall by my hand! Wrath of a king! The Madaketh will fall by my hand! The Madaketh will fall by my hand! Wrath of a king! I shall dethrone you, Sekama, and leave you to the sand! The Madaketh will fall by my hand! I tried to seek peace, and the Sekamas disgraced me! Rot in the sand. This time, we choose war! We shall finish this! But not today.
Make haste! He must not escape!
German Ra.
Quickly!
The corpse
He conjures the
is
very
running
sands
away.
against us! This is no natural sandstorm. We must let the source shaman. We would have.
Do not wander.
Do not wander.
Ah, yes. Fight to the last.
Oh. Excellent. Here we go. Can't play anymore. Turn that bullshit off once.
to wield.
spit graves and necromancers. This place just gets better and better.
come on. Ah! What is your fucking issue?
Guess what? You can bring your phone to Metro and get one line with unlimited 5G for $25 a month.
That's cool because
Hello, Exiles, and today I bring you part 2 of the PC Freeze saga. Now, as you can see on screen here, I did a video a couple weeks ago where I put that there was a fix out, and the way that you did that fix was by downloading a software and was actually by limiting the amount of CPUs that you actually gave to Path of Exile. Now, what I want to say is obviously there was a lot of comments, and obviously the video has kind of gone viral. It's at 55,000 views nearly. There's a lot of comments that are saying that yes, this has worked, but then there's a lot of comments that are saying no, this hasn't worked. Now, the process itself, as you can see here on screen, was that you had to basically go into the active processes of the actual game or the actual PC, and you then had to actually then turn off the fact that you had 2 CPUs for Path of Exile 2. Now, like I just said, sometimes this worked for some people, sometimes it didn't. Now, the issue that we have is obviously that we want to make sure that obviously it runs for everybody. So I bring to you part 2. Now, I've done a hell of a lot of research and a lot of researching around to try and find something that does actually work, and I bring you this. So this is basically the software, and I don't take any credit for this, guys. The guy who actually told me this was a guy on Reddit, and his name, if you want it, was, because I cannot find his post, but his post was called, or his name was called, Officially Honester. And he basically said that he used to use Process Lasso, but then he changed to Battle Encoder Shrize, and it does the exact same job. I've never had any issues, and it's completely free, and there's no trial. So the issue with this Process Lasso, which a lot of people have been using, is that it is obviously not free, and obviously that it does keep coming up every single day, saying the fact that obviously that you have to, when you turn your PC on, you have to bypass this. However, this one, which I'm going to show you now, which is called Battle Encoder, I think it's Shiraze, and again, you can tell me if I'm saying it wrong, but basically all you have to do is when Path of Exile is running, you have to press target, and what it will then do is it will then go through your entire CPU processes, and it'll show you obviously which is running the most CPU. What you would then do is you then press limit this. So what we'll do is we'll just open Path of Exile just so you can see it working. See, look, it says target missing. As soon as the game opens, it should, there we go. It's now running, so now it's working. Let me just bring it back up. So we do target. So it's now at the top here. What I'm doing at the bottom here, so I've done limit this and then do limit and watch. What I do is I have restricted it to only use 80% of my CPU, and I have limited it so that 20% of it cannot use. Okay, ever. Now, I know it says up here that it's using 100% of my CPU, but that's wrong because obviously I've limited it. If I then do limit and watch, it says, are you sure? Yes. Done. Then you close this. What this then does, if you keep this open here, it limits how much CPU usage the game does use. And obviously it will always use 80%, and even under load, it's still absolutely fine. And since I've been using this, I have not had one crash on a loading screen. So I'm going to say that this is actually better than the Process Lasso, just because with Process Last One, I was still getting the odd crash. Every now and then, it was very random. But with this, I've not had one yet. So, if you want to use this, like I said, it's called Battle Encoder Shiraise. I'm using 1.79. Again, I'll run through that very quickly again. So you go target, you click on obviously Path of Exile, you would obviously press limit this. You would obviously use this slider to kind of limit how much of the CPU you want it to use. Then you press limit and watch, and then press close. And what it will do is it will just close that little box, but it keeps this open here. Okay, and then this obviously you can just minimize this and then go about playing the game, and you don't have any issues with the CPU. Like I said, up here, look, you can see everything's running fine. You know, I'm getting like 50 frames per second, and I literally just stood here in base, so there's no issues CPU wise. As you can see there, it's trying to use the CPU, but obviously it's limited it. So yeah, but I've not had any issues in gameplay. I've not had any problems or anything since adding this as an installation onto my PC. What I would like you guys to do is, if this does work, then let me know in the comments, and obviously throw us a subscribe if it works, because obviously I know there's a lot of people that are pretty
Right, let's jump onto Path of Exile. Oh no, oh wait, it's crashed. Are you, like me, sick and tired of basically trying to load into a map and Path of Exile crashing to the point where your PC has to be hard reset? Well, I've got a little fix for you. I can't take any credit for this. I found this through multiple searches on Reddit. I'll leave a link to the video in my description. But basically, there's an app called PoE Uncrasher, and what it does is it turns off cores as and when needed, which stops your CPU going to 100% utilization, which means that it stops your PC crashing and therefore allows you to obviously continue playing the game. The way that you need to do this is, one, you need to launch Path of Exile on Crasher, and then it'll say waiting for Path of Exile process to launch before doing anything. Then, what you need to do after that, launch Path of Exile. As you launch Path of Exile, you'll see it's parked the cores across there, 0, 0. And then it's reading the client from the Steam directly across there. What it will do is whenever the game will crash, it will basically unpark the cores and then it'll park the cores back. Because it does this, it stops the game crashing. I tried it, so I've been trying it now for about 2 days, and I've not had a single crash. I've not had a single crash since. So it works really, really well. Like I say, I'll leave a link to the description to the video. I'll leave a link to download in the video, and enjoy looting and grinding them divines. If this video helped, please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see
Go live. There we go. Big deal. Fun times. I think I finished this map already. Yeah, that one's done. So what do you think? Is it risky to try and use the multi-threading thing? They said that they did work on it. However, I then went to the chats underneath it, and they were all like, yeah, I was so excited to try this, and so then my first map crashed my computer on me.
Oh no.
Yes.
I mean, worst thing happens is you crash and then come back on.
That's true.
Yeah,
Let's try. It'll make it look better for everybody else. It's worth it for them.
Yeah.
I guess we'll find out. I doubt anybody is going to show up in the first few seconds, so this is the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, it's my first YouTube stream. I did Twitch before. I'm just trying a quick YouTube one, seeing how it works out.
You should be able to stream to both at the same time.
I could if I had the deluxe or whatever, the upgraded version of Streamlabs. I don't have that yet though. I'll probably end up getting it if this ends up doing well, because that would be kind of wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, technically I could also stream in OBS and do that one to Twitch, which would be kind of funny. Way of double dipping. And the game looks so much better with multi-threading on.
Yeah, it does.
couple days ago, I had a stream on Twitch, and it was going pretty well. One person from my YouTube comments, pretty sure it's she, came over and we basically hung out the whole night just talking about nerdy things like Diablo 2 and like Berserk and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then the girlfriend, she was like, "Wait, what? You talked to a girl?" Like, didn't have any concept that maybe a girl would be into the games and want to talk about the games.
Yeah, yeah, that could be a lot of them.
It's kind of funny though. She was legitimately jealous for a couple days and still bugs me about it.
Oh no.
Yeah. It's really goofy though. Like, obviously, she is right in front of me. Why is she jealous? If she wants to not be jealous, just come and, I don't know, talk to me, sit on my lap,
Yeah, do it.
lay in bed.
Yeah.
She she is getting all the priority attention and she knows it. Howdy guys. I see a couple of you have walked in. Oh, Boomtron, I like this one. It's got the purple explosions all over the place, and in the Affliction League, the first one that I did in Path of Exile 1, if you got like all the way to the end, and it was a ridiculous grind, but I ended up doing it because I really wanted to, because the reward was you get this helmet that changes your health bar to purple, and it looked so good. So I'm waiting for that one to get carried over, because I don't want blue energy shield, I want the pop in purple.
Oh yeah, yeah. See that.
Hmm. Oh, that makes sense. I've forgotten their patch notes. They said they're making the strong boxes less terrible, but they haven't made them less terrible yet. I just did one and it was terrible, like really
I've
ass.
never gotten anything good out of them
Well,
except
they're
murder. I've been
pretty
murdered a few
much.
times for nothing. Yeah, they've got a lot of work to do. I mean,
Mhm.
they said they wanted this game to be like a slower paced, more methodical version, but like the end game right now is still like if you don't have a crazy build that just like goes nuts and kills everything, you know, you're
You're
screwed.
getting you're
So
very much so screwed, yeah.
so it's
Yeah,
still
they
very much PoE one at the beginning or the end of the game.
yeah, they said one thing but built something else. But I liked PoE 1 as well, so even if they kept it blasty but made the end game builds a little bit more balanced, so you didn't need to be like obviously my level to wreck end game bosses. If you could
Yeah,
be like if they're gonna gate everything behind pinnacle content, everything should be able to beat the first couple levels of pinnacle content. You should be able to beat it with like trash gear straight out of campaign,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then massively increase its difficulty as you keep going.
yeah. Agreed. And it's an odd difficulty curve because it's like you're super powerful, you're awesome, and then all of a sudden you're frozen in place and dying.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like it's very much like alive or dead, like on or off,
Mhm.
until you get those, I guess, resists up or not resists, but stun thresholds.
Yeah, the stun threshold is difficult to deal with, like really difficult.
It's so hard. That's like if my character could deal with that, I wouldn't have to worry about them anymore.
Mhm. Stun threshold is definitely tweaked the wrong way right now. It's like it's they had it that way in PoE 1 as well, where you needed to take care of literally everything. But in PoE 1, you'd get essentially either on your flask or on a corrupted jewel immune to you get like immune to freezes and all that jazz, but you could also get like elemental purity, I think it was called, that just straight up made you immune to all elemental ailments. That's the freezes, the shocks, the everything. And then you also got one thing for like immune to stuns. And you do that and you're just laughing through the whole game. And
Oh,
if you
okay,
don't
yeah.
have it, you just hate life. So hopefully they bring some of that in because right now like I had to invest so much just to not hate life.
Yeah, the economy's getting pretty pricey.
Mhm.
For a lot of stuff.
Relentless assault!
Well, one thing that makes me kind of happy is people are still able to sell some of their older gear to other people that are still building up. One of the guys who asked me to fix his build, he went in and he had legitimately just some really mismatched gear. It wasn't good, and so everything that he needed to buy, he's selling his gear for more than he paid for the new gear. So he's getting upgrades.
My Capital One team made it easy to redeem your credit card rewards in stores like REI. We built an API that is serverless, scalable, and reusable.
Really? Want to test the waters?
Okay, last video regarding the Intel stuff, I promise. As you can imagine, we talk about the failing CPUs and Intel's involvement and the fact that the motherboards still own a huge piece of this, even though the Intel statement said they're microcode. There's much deeper nuances to why the dynamic between motherboards and CPUs is causing these failures in 13th and 14th gen. Anyway, I digress. As you can imagine, my inbox has lots of people saying, what can I do to keep my CPU from failing while I'm waiting for the latest microcode that is supposed to help relieve any of the risks to the future. So we're gonna talk about that today. I'm gonna show you what you need to do with your system to hopefully keep it running in the meantime. And hopefully this will be it. Hopefully. For those looking for a high-end custom gaming experience, look no further than Falcon Northwest. Falcon Northwest has been building PCs made for gamers for over 30 years with a focus on a long conversation with Falcon about this, because obviously anything they do to keep their risk as low as possible. So the very first thing that was said is the number one thing you can possibly do is update your BIOS. The reason for that is the fact that many of these fixes are motherboard issues as well. I don't really have the time to go into a deep dive on this. I know Wendell has talked about it with level 1 techs. I know Steve has talked about some BIOS stuff, but he's more on the crusade against the brand, if you will. So we'll back off from that. But the Buildzoid has also done some amazing content regarding the problems with the motherboard settings and BIOS and the way that they're designed, which is just layering in the Intel problem. So really it's kind of the perfect storm between Intel not keeping close enough tabs on their board partners and keeping them within spec, and then the board partners obviously taking too much liberties with what the CPU's capabilities are when it comes to voltages and stuff. So I had asked a question, like if I was to recommend that everyone drop their frequencies and drop their voltages and just keep the CPUs more gimped in the meantime, it was basically explained to me that that's actually somewhat part of the problem. Some of the problem too is sometimes undervolting or undervolting by the motherboard manufacturers has been causing instability problems. So that's why the number one recommendation is going to be to update your BIOS. Now that's scary for a lot of people. And most SIs do not recommend that their customers update their BIOS without using some sort of an installer or a guide from the SI themselves. The SI really wants to keep the customer's experience very curated so that they know exactly what the customer is doing. They need step-by-step instructions, which is exactly what Falcon provided for their systems. Doesn't matter if it's a Falcon Northwest or an iBuyPower or an NZXT build or an Origin PC or Digital Storm or CLX or whatever brands that are out there, right? You just talk to them first and foremost, because if your CPU fails, you're gonna have to go through them to get it fixed, which I still think is an unnecessary step because of the fact that you would have to send in your entire system to get it replaced. That ends up being the problem. So first and foremost, this BIOS right here is old. This one is version 1303, and I think the BIOS that we're actually gonna be putting on this machine that was sent over by Falcon Northwest, because they test it first, They test the BIOS to make sure that what the brand, like in this case ASUS, is sending to them saying this is going to fix the problems. They go through and vet all of that and say yes or no. These are not good enough. We're not going to send these to our customers, etc. So the latest BIOS, I think it's 2406. We'll see in a moment. Is apparently the one that they're highly recommending. In fact, they sent out a blast email last week to all their customers saying use this BIOS, and then based on which motherboard you're using in their build, they show you which one to use. So we're going to be doing some A/B testing, if you will, not as controlled of an environment as I would like, but this is out of the box. The only thing that's changed is I did change the RAM. It's not RGB RAM anymore. It's 6,000 megahertz, 32 gigabytes of crucial RAM. I put the other RAM, which was non-binary RAM. I wanted to do a video on that, and I kind of forgot, and I'll come back to it probably. That's like 96 gigabytes of non-binary RAM, which is like 248 RAMs or gig sticks, so they're in something else right now. That's the only change I made to this system. So BIOS settings are all untouched with the exception of enabling the XMP for the latest BIOS. You'll also notice too, let's talk about the voltage for a second, because Phil did point it out. 1.43 in the BIOS is actually normal. Some BIOSes, and Falcon showed this, can go up to like 1.67, which is very not good. So there's lots of weirdness happening in the BIOS. So let's talk about some of the settings here. So you'll notice there's none of the additional tab that was added later, which is the Intel specification settings. So this is all the typical stuff. Let BIOS optimize, right? There's my XMP. So if I go into the CPU power management stuff, you'll see there it is. It's uncapped, right? 4,095 watt, which is unlimited. 511 amps, which again is unlimited because 512 is unlimited. So essentially it's just for 56 seconds, I guess it doesn't matter because it just goes from 4,000 to 4,000. Let the cooler be the limit. So TVB, or thermal velocity boost, it's using that table to say, hey, at these temperatures, run these frequencies. Well, we can actually look at the TVB on this. So from the main AI tweaker tab, if you go to thermal velocity boost, you can actually see what the tables look like right here, right? So one active core wants to go to 60, 2 wants to go to 60, 3 wants to go to 57. Do you notice there's no temp bin? This is where it should kind of be saying at these temperatures, drop the frequencies 100. Intel actually specifies at 85 degrees Celsius is where you're supposed to lose the first 100 megahertz bin. They're all zeros on here because basically it's just saying, let the cooler be the limiting factor at that point. And it's basically going to only limit if you start to hit the top end temperature threshold, which is 100 C in this case. But like I said, Intel has it set.
Don't overthink it. A large one-topping pizza is only $9.99 at Papa John's.
3 different crusts, any topping.
Get the go-to that never gets old. Get a large one-topping pizza for $9.99. Better ingredients, better pizza.
To, I believe, 85C is where you should drop the first 100 megahertz, and then it goes on from there. So that's all zeros. I'm curious to see if any of this is going to change at all. This is also going to be entirely dependent on the profile that's preloaded. So on the newer BIOS, you'll see there's going to be Intel settings that will show up. That should change some of this. So I'm just only looking at this with you guys on camera because I'm going to be looking for things that are changing. I want to see what the new BIOS is going to look like, especially since it's this one's so old versus the one that I'm going to be loading. But I want to see if we're going to lose any performance too. So I'm going to take you along for the ride on how to update the BIOS on an ASUS motherboard. You'll have to follow the motherboard manufacturers for any MSI, Gigabyte, ASRock, or any other boards that you might have. Usually they're pretty easily built into the BIOS themselves where you just run utility within the BIOS, and that's that. I highly recommend you also remove any overclocks that you have applied right now. Any overclocks at all. For obvious reasons, especially since right now voltage is the #1 killer of the CPUs for a multitude of reasons. So Cinebench R23 and Hardware Monitor are my 2 favorite utilities when it comes to checking thermals on a CPU and voltages and such. It's free. I've done a video about it. You can see our vid max is set to 1.40 whatever right here. That's actually what we saw in the BIOS there. But we also have our vCore right here, which is going to be fluctuating based on the load. So you can see it's going between 1.385. If I stop wiggling the mouse, it'll probably drop back down to 0.7. Nope, there it goes, 0.97. And then we're looking at our wattages down here too. So our package wattage, and we can see our IA core wattages right here. But we're looking to see, I'm curious as to how high that's going to probably go. Based on our cooler, it's probably going to go well over 300. I'm guessing near 320 watts. And then obviously our temperatures and our voltages. I just want to, and then our score. What's our score going to be, and what's it going to be impacted by with this update? So a single multi-threaded run, it's going to get hot. There's 80, 94, 96, 98, 97, and 100. There it goes. And we even have a red light on the motherboard that they're showing we are throttling currently. But not really though, because look, we're still at 5.7 all core. Oh, one core just hit 5.6 for a second. 5.7. So if we take a look, 341 watts. We have a 280 millimeter AIO on here. We're asking a whole lot of that thing. It's 341 watts. Oh, we got a 41,273 though. That's a really good score. The problem is every time we hammer the CPU like this, we're potentially degrading it more. So, and that was one run. We would obviously lose speed as the cooler becomes saturated and the coolant temp comes up. We'll start seeing those clocks drop. But they're not going to be dropping because of the fact that it's realizing that the coolant's hot or anything. It's going to be dropping because it's going to be hitting the thermal threshold so hard that it has no choice but to drop the frequency and the voltages to try and get the temperatures down. So right now I'm just scraping that limit. I'm probably just barely bumping my head on it as we do our runs. So I flashed my BIOS, well, I copied my BIOS onto a thumb drive, and then we're just gonna boot into our BIOS here, and then we are going to use the built-in utility. Now I could do a BIOS flashback on this if I wanted, but I don't feel there's any reason to if the system's up and running. Any profiles that you have saved, by the way, any custom profile stuff will get lost. In fact, we'll probably even lose the Falcon logo unless I go in, because this BIOS has the logo on it, because it's part of an SI distributed BIOS. We have to go in and enable that though. So let's do advanced mode, go over here to tool, ASUS Easy Flash 3 utility. Let's navigate to our thumb drive, which should be that guy. Nope, oh, it's that guy. There it is right there. So Z790E 2402. So yeah, we went from a very old BIOS now to a very much more revision. Yeah, 1303 to a 2402. So it has been a while. Here's the thing regarding ASUS BIOS updates specifically. It'll probably restart a couple times. It might even look like it hung a few times. Let it go. Be Elsa, let it go. It's probably gonna go through and do an initial clear like it's doing now, then a flash to the EEPROM. Then it'll restart and probably flash something to like ASUS Aura. There's like something else on the board it flashes for Aura. And then it might restart again and do the ME, which is the management engine update for the CPU. And then it might do another restart. So don't interrupt the process. Or the next video you'll be looking up is how do I do a BIOS flashback on a bricked BIOS. So I'm gonna let this go. It's gonna take a minute. It's a big update because a lot has changed since the last one. And this is how we know we're ready to proceed. So it did the initial erase the EEPROM, then you see the progress bar, then a reboot, and then it shows flashing LED firmware, which is like the Aura stuff, and then a reboot, and then the management engine or the ME firmware, and then a reboot, and now here we are. So every time it turns off, I've seen people then like start to try and hit delete and mash the buttons and stuff. And although once it gets past the main firmware flash, it tends to be able to self-recover pretty well and realize like, hey, we're not done with what we were doing. Don't interrupt it. Just let it go until you get to here. And now we can go back into our BIOS settings where everything's gonna be basically, well look, our voltage already dropped down some. So from 1.40 something to 1.359, XMP is currently disabled, that's fine. So let's see now what has changed once we get in here. So here's our Intel defaults and then ASUS Advanced OC profile. Activate the ASUS Advanced OC profile to set all configurations to auto without power limit, current, and voltage safeguards. Utilizing unlocked features or modifying the clock frequency or voltage could lead to decrease in stability and lifespan of the processor. They were doing it for you already, don't let them fool you. And other system components. If you intend to overclock your processor, learn what you're doing, they're basically saying. So that's really all we get. Like we used to see that there was Intel default and Intel Extreme and all that. Anyway. Oh, right here. So Intel default is Intel Extreme, I'm guessing. It says load the Intel Extreme profile and set ICC max to 400 amps. PL1 and 2 are set to 253 for 13900 and 1400K and KF, which is fine. Okay, let's just load that. The Intel default settings, which means now, by default, ASUS multi-core enhancement has switched to enforce all limits. That's fine. Let's now see what our thermal velocity boost stuff looks like. So at, well, I guess it shows 1 and 2. At 80, we'll lose 100 megahertz. At 90, we'll lose another 100 megahertz. But for for any cores 3 or more being used, it's kind of not doing anything. Okay, so really all I did was turn on Intel limits and then XMP. That's all I changed. A pretty strong feeling we're gonna lose score. I can't see at 253 watts with the voltage limit we're gonna have with that we could go anywhere near 5.7 all core. I think we're gonna be like 5.4 all core, and then I think we're gonna probably be around 39,000. I think we'll probably lose like a solid 2,000 points. I'd rather lose 2,000 points than all of the points because the CPU's dead. So let's see what our temperature shoot up to immediately, and let's check our wattage right here. Hey, 253. Hey, 79. It's at 78, 79. We're at 5 gigahertz all core, 5.1 gigahertz all core now. So we did lose some speed. We certainly did. And we're gonna lose a bit of score with it too, look. 37,574. That is a stock 13900/14900 score. 14900 is like usually like 500 to 1,000 more. That is a stock score. That is what behavior was expected to happen. Look at our vCore max. If we do the run again, multi-core, let's watch it during the run, right here, vCore. 1.217, that is such a reasonable number. Now I see this a lot of times, people ask like, why does it say 1.439? Well, if the CPU is not under full load and the cores are bouncing around doing different things and the frequency is high, it has to give it more voltage to give stability to the higher frequencies. But it can do that safely too because it's not doing it, 1, for long sustained periods of time, and 2, it's well within the safe limit. Intel says anything 1.5 and lower is like okay. Anything 1.5 and above, they're a little nervous about. And again, the motherboards have a lot of leeway on how this voltage applies to your CPU, regardless of microcode. Anything 1.6 or above, they want a screenshot. They want to see it because that should not be happening. And that's kind of what's led to a lot of this failure analysis to figure out that a lot of these CPUs were overvolting the crap out of themselves or requesting the voltage, and motherboards were like, sure, take it. The motherboard really should also be responsible for saying, are you sure you want 1.6 volts? Because our records show you should not be exceeding 1.5. And then sign a waiver here, initial these 3 places, and notarize, and then off you go. Anyway, yes, the behavior did exactly what I expected it to do. We lost performance, but with it, very reasonable temperatures and very reasonable voltages. What I want to do now is I want to see what happens with that ASUS overclocking profile. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to advanced OC profile. I have no idea what's changed. I think that technically, yes, that now is doing the remove all limits thing. Multi-core enhancement, let BIOS, okay. CPU load line calibration, level 4, recommended for OC. AC/DC load line with VRM load line enabled to disabled, which is actually a good thing. We talked about that on the phone too, how these two can actually cause problems when enabled together. So it was already asking for more volts at 1. vCore, there it is, 1.332. So you can see from 1.217, actually that was under full load. Anyway, it's gonna bounce around. Let's see what happens now with a full core workload. There it is, 91, 93, 98. Right back to where it was, 344. So it's essentially what it was prior to us even doing the flashing. And there's our 41,268. The performance is back, but with it, the incredible voltages. So let's do it again here. vCore under full load from 1.217 to a 1.385. I mean, if you had extreme cooling, you could do it, but I'm just not comfortable with that at all. So as you can see, it just undid everything we did. So my recommendations, and they're not just my recommendations, they're recommendations of those that I reached out to in the industry that work with thousands of computers, more than I deal with. Update your BIOS and make sure that the Intel limitation stuff is enabled, okay? You're still gonna have brands wanting to push the limits. You're still gonna have brands wanting to push their own flavor of however they wanna deal with an unlocked CPU to make them look better than all of the other brands that are out there motherboard-wise. Realistically, your motherboard itself should not be pushing a CPU beyond its factory specifications out of the box, which we've already shown the motherboards will do repeatedly and criminally as far as I'm concerned. So update your BIOS. Any 13th or 14th gen, probably not a bad idea for 12th gen either, to be honest, but any Intel motherboard at this point within the last 3 generations of CPU, update the BIOS. And then don't enable any overclocks. There will be another BIOS coming with the microcode stuff in August if everything goes smoothly and they flush out any of the bugs that are built into that microcode. But don't believe Intel when they say our microcode was the only problem, because it wasn't. They're kind of sticking up for their board partners and really sort of, I think, unfairly allowing them to get away with what they've gotten away with. It's go watch Wendell, Level 1 Text. Go to Wendell's personal Twitter.